Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Dr. Simar Kochar and I'm currently preparing for NEET PG 2026. I know this is very late, but I gave my mini test of integrated systems part 1 last week and I did want to talk about it. So, yeah, this video is going to be about mini test of integrated systems part 1. So, let's just jump straight into it. First thing, my corrects in my percentile. So my percentile was 82% and I got 69 corrects and 29 incorrects, and I left two questions unattempted. My blunders were 10, and I felt like there were very few questions that were actually new information in this particular test. So there were just 4 or 5 questions that felt new. Rest of them were mainly concept heavy and long stem questions and clinical stem questions. Test was actually really fun to give. The questions did spark a lot of neurons in my brain, and I hope it did in your brain as well. And the questions felt very rewarding when they were solvable, and very, very tricky when you couldn't put your finger on it. Then they were very tricky. But in the end, when you watch the recall, then you realize that actually the answers or the questions that you got wrong or just couldn't attempt them are actually way in depth and way more fun than you actually thought they were. And even then, learning them through questions becomes really exciting and amazing. So, this was a very good test, I would say. Tests a lot of concepts and a lot of topics in general. From this particular integrated part 1 subjects, I feel like my weakest came out to be cardiovascular system, and I did expect that to be like that because CVS is very weak for me, and I am trying to do more questions to crack it. But yeah, still I haven't got the hang of it. Maybe in the next cycle it's going to be better, but I'm not losing my hopes on that. And my strongest, I wouldn't say the strongest, would be any in the integrated system, because I'm not fully 100% confident about any one subject in integrated system. But if I had to choose, then I would say GIT is something that I feel like it's very doable for me and very enjoyable for me as well. The biggest blunders that I felt like I have been repeatedly doing, first of all, would be not reading the question statements and the points that have been given in a clinical STEM question. For example, there was this question on digoxin toxicity, and I was 100% sure that we have to give digibind and we have to treat the toxicity, but I didn't read that the patient was undergoing hypokalemia. So if we can't just give digibind immediately, we have to treat the hypokalemia first and then go ahead with the digibind. So this was something that I could just correct by reading the statement properly. There was another question just like that. So there was this question about PSVT, and I immediately, and the patient was stable, so I immediately went for adenosine 6 mg IV push as bolus, and I was so sure that this question is going to be correct for me. But then I didn't read that the patient had asthma, and the answer suddenly changes because ABCD drugs you can't give them in asthma, and then the answer immediately becomes CCBs like Virapamil. And this was another lack on my behalf, that I didn't read the question properly. Another thing that I repeatedly get wrong is the cells in stomach, and I don't know why I get it wrong, but it's just a weaker topic for me, so I just drew it in my rough notebook. And in my test notebook or a rough notebook, I don't know, I just open this notebook every time I am giving a test. I have just demarcated the sections and the cells which are found in this section. For example, the first section at the topmost is the pit, where we see surface mucus cells because they're on the surface and they secrete mucus and bicarb. Then in the isthmus, that is the junction between the pit and the neck, there is stem cells which regenerate and form new epithelial cells of the stomach. Then there is neck, which has parietal cells which secrete H plus, that is HCl intrinsic factor. And the base at last has chief cells which secretes pepsinogen, and enterochromaffin like cells which secrete histamine. And there was another blunder that I actively made, which was tiger like appearances. For example, eye of tiger sign versus tigroid appearance. So eye of tiger sign is seen in pecan pantothenate kinase associated neurodegeneration, and then there is Hallenward's Pad syndrome, which I might be pronouncing wrong, but This is how eye of tiger sign looks, and the tigroid appearance is the white matter showing stripy appearance, just like a tiger's skin, tiger's fur, and it's seen in MLD and Pigsley Merzbach disease. So this was another blunder that I actively committed. There was some new information questions. So first of all, there was this question about urine color changes which are seen with different drugs. I don't think it's a very important topic in general, but like this was a new topic that had been highlighted in this test. Then there were platelet agonists or platelet drugs, for example, TPO agonists, which are eltrombopag and lusotrombopag. And lusotrombopag is actually given only once, and it temporarily increases the platelet count. And both of these, the bags are given orally, whereas ruplostim, which is also a TPO agonist, is given IV. And then there is interleukin 11 agonist, which is prelfkin, right? And this is also given IV. Then there was tyrosine kinase inhibitors, which are first generation imatinib, second generation, which are nilotinib, dasatinib, and bosutinib. And if there is a gatekeeper T315 mutation, we can't use these second generation. Then we have to go for third generation, which is ponatinib. And the question was about that. So this was a new fact. Topics that I would like to revisit after this mini test are as follows. And one thing that I would like to mention is that few topics that came in my revisit list were actually from the previous subjects that have already been covered. And I feel like I have started to forget some important facts and important things about the subjects that have already been done, and I do need to revisit them as well. So if you guys are also facing this in your GTs or in your mini tests, that you are getting the questions wrong from the subjects that you've already done and then they are a recall error, then I suggest that you should also go back and study them. If you feel like you don't want to study the notes entirely right now and revise them, and you don't have the time in the day to watch videos and then also revise older subjects that you've already covered, then I suggest then you can do custom modules or questions or q bank of a subject that you want to revise. So for example, if you want to revise surgery and you don't feel like revising the notes itself, then you can just make a custom module for surgery, and then you can just do the questions of that, and then you can learn through the questions or revise through the questions the topics that have been highlighted in that particular subject. And this is also very quick and an active way of reviewing stuff that you've already done. And I am definitely going to start doing that at night, or maybe whenever I feel like I don't want to study the subject that I'm currently studying. So plans for my next test. So I know the next test has already started, the integrated systems part 2 mini test, and I haven't still completed my syllabus for that, and I will first of all complete that and then I'll give the test. And I am actually really nervous about giving this part 2 because a lot of subjects that I am weak in, especially pharma, I'm really scared of pharma, and I don't know what kind of questions are going to come in that. But yeah, we are all in this together and we're going to face it together. So yeah, whenever I am done with my mini test part 2, I am going to put a review hopefully about that as well. And things that I would change for my next mini test or next tests coming in, coming forward. First of all, I would read the clinical STEM questions twice. The statements, I'm going to read them twice because I feel like I always have some 5 or 7 minutes or 10 minutes spared when I am done with my questions in every set. And maybe because that's because I anxiously go through questions really quickly, but I do want to change that. I want to actually read clinical STEM questions twice so that I do not jump through any important pointer or any important significant change in the question that changes the entire statement. For example, I just told you about the digoxin and the PSBT question, and that's the first thing that I want to do, and that I will read the clinical STEM questions twice every time that I am solving them. Then I also think that since the integrated system is started, I haven't been doing as much questions that I can practice for, and I will definitely increase. I will keep a note of the number of questions that I'm doing every day, and I'm going to increase that so that with more practice I can actually crack these questions further. The last and the most important thing that I would say is I try to keep calm on my nerves because integrated system has made us all a little bit crazy and a little bit anxious about the test coming forward. I want to keep my nerves a little calmer while studying, while watching the videos, while learning the concept, because if you lose your calm, you nothing's going to go in your brain after that. And if you're going to get 50 questions correct and then you lose your calm, those 50 are also going to wobble a little bit because just not confident in your answers then. So I would also suggest you guys to keep your calm, and I'm also going to try to imply that to myself in the coming test. Apart from that, I hope you guys are also studying well and you're on track with your syllabus. If you even if you're not on track, don't worry, even I'm also not on track, I'm way behind. And but the biggest and the most important thing is that we are studying, and that's what's important, learning something or the other every day. And for that, I wish you guys all the very best, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye bye.